And let's do this, America. Yes, that's right, kids. DrMikeSevilla live for Tuesday, August 12th, 2014. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and here at Family Medicine Rocks World Headquarters, it is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's right, sweltering here today. And we have a fun show here for you this evening. And on the line with me, on video, I know I'm throwing him a little bit off of his comfort zone because he's a podcast guy. He is the ePatient advisor for Stanford Medicine X, coming up in just a few weeks, and also the host of the Just Talking podcast. Christopher Snider joins me. Chris, welcome to the Google Hangout.
I feel like thank you for having me. I feel like we need to have a quick consult to make sure that you're doing okay, Dr. Sevilla.
Yes, that's right. My allergies here in Northeastern Ohio have gotten the best of me, and I have my best Barry White podcaster voice here this evening. But just to let the viewers know, I'm not going to be breaking out in song. But thanks for the time today. We've done podcasts, but this is going to be kind of fun just to kind of chat it up about a lot of stuff.
I don't know why you want to sell yourself short when we just got started. I mean, we've got a whole hour here. I feel like I might be able to convince you to break out into a little song.
Well, you know, that's the story of my career. I just I set the low expectations and then I try to surpass them. So
to the low expectations of becoming a doctor instead of a singer. Okay.
That's right. That's right. So how you doing there, buddy? How's it going?
I'm doing all right. It is. Let's see what Google tells me the temperature is here in sunny San Francisco. 63. It's been like that since I moved here. I don't know. It's great.
It's been there since 1942.
Yeah, it's difficult to complain about the weather here, but since I used to live in a place that had, 4 seasons and precipitation and things like that, I feel like I still have another few months. I feel like I have another 4 months of complaining about the lack of weather here before it's just kind of a tacky thing to do.
So since you had to move out there and it's the same temperature all year, did you just not bring a lot of clothes with you? Just forget this. I'm just gonna Goodwill all these things, and I just have this one little dresser that I'm gonna take to California with me.
So you say California, but from what I understand, and I've only been here for 8 months, but Northern California is a different animal compared to Southern California. Southern California is what most people think: shorts, bikinis, warm weather, it's beautiful. In Northern California, specifically San Francisco, specifically where I live, where the fog and the wind is always there, I mean, the temperatures sit here, so here, mid-50s, and then here, mid-70s, and it just does this all the time. So it can get kind of cold. You're going to need a jacket or a sweatshirt most of the time, but then it can also get warm to the point where every now and then shorts and a t-shirt will be okay. So I did bring a decent amount of clothing, a decent variety of clothing, but there was a good chunk of stuff that I left behind to donate and to give to family, friends, and things like that.
So being the MedX ambassador, is that tip one for the people out there coming there in September as far as, bring something warm to wear?
No, because Palo Alto is always beautiful. It's not San Francisco. It's unfair. So in living in San Francisco, I was driving to the Stanford campus to help out with some of their Thursday and Tuesday programmings, and from here, you need a sweatshirt and things like that from where I live. But when I get on campus, it's beautiful. The sun is always shining. There are no clouds. It is not fair. So I would, for the conference room itself, bring layers. Bring a jacket, bring a sweatshirt, bring something that's going to keep you warm just in case. Because with all the people in that one main hall room, the air conditioning can get a little chilly. But whenever you're not inside that room, it will be comfortable, I would imagine. So I would, as would be the protocol for any conference, bring layers, but prepare for cold inside and warm outside.
So let's just jump into this here. So Stanford Medicine X, medicinex.stanford.edu, or just Google Stanford Medicine X. So Chris, for people, and especially in my audience, who probably not even familiar with what this is, for people who may not even know what Stanford Medicine X is, what do you tell people? How do you even start to describe what Stanford Medicine X is?
I would tell them to go to Twitter and search for the hashtag MedX. Also, the tagline is the intersection of medicine and emerging technologies. It's a little more complicated and a little more exciting than that, actually, in part because, and this is just from my perspective, the most exciting thing about MedX is that every year there are about 30 ePatients that are given scholarships to attend, and they are kind of put at the forefront of the conference. I mean, the idea is to have these conversations about healthcare, about medicine, about technology, but to bring every aspect of the healthcare kind of spectrum together. So it's not just the startups talking about their fancy new app. It's not just the doctors talking about how they've streamlined their processes. It's also the patients, because practicing medicine requires the patient perspective. And because we can have all of these individuals in the same room at the same time, potentially on the same panels, talking about all these different issues, all these different topics, it's a really exciting time to kind of get your kind of innovation juices flowing and to really start talking about a bunch of different topics that we all might think about individually, but I think because there are so many different perspectives that are presented at once, it's a really exciting opportunity for people to just kind of think outside the box, which I hate to use that term, but for me, in my world of diabetes, it's a lot of fun to kind of go to this conference and get the perspectives of different patient communities. So much of my world is dealt through the diabetes community, but when I hear different stories from people dealing with arthritis or cancer or whatever, and I can hear all the similarities. I can kind of identify some of the differences and some of the opportunities where we might be able to collaborate on different kind of social media agendas and things like that. But it's a nice opportunity for a lot of different conversations that happen that don't really happen face to face that often.
And I know it's not unfair for me to kind of have you share your entire thing in kind of a soundbite, but just to give my audience here a little bit of your ePatient story, how would when people ask you, what is your ePatient story? What do you start out by telling them?
I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2002. I started my diabetes blog January 1st, 2009, in a bit of rage and frustration, which is, I would imagine, how most most stories within the diabetes online community start. There's always that initial kind of fear of, I'm alone in this, and then all of a sudden you go onto Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you happen to search diabetes, and you realize there's a whole community out there. And for a couple of months, I'd been lurking and reading blogs, and I decided to kind of jump into the ocean myself, and I started writing about it, and found that it helped. Early on, it was an awesome therapy for me to kind of vent my frustrations and to get a lot of stuff off my chest. And then once life became a little more stable, I continued to publish on the blog, even if it wasn't necessarily about diabetes. And then I just slowly started to expand interacting with the rest of the diabetes community. And from there, I'm about to get married to a woman who found me because of my blog. I'm out in California helping out Medicine X, in part because of everything that's happened after my diabetes diagnosis. I have a podcast, which in the show notes you put my 5-year anniversary for podcasting, which just blows my mind. I can't believe I've been doing this for that long. But my podcast originated from the fact that I have diabetes, and I started writing about my diabetes, and that there was a whole snowball of events that eventually led to me having a podcast. Everything that I am, for the most part, is because of my diabetes, and it's kind of weird to say considering I've only had it for a little over 10 years, but I don't know. It's a weird thing to think that something that can be tragic and can be a real bummer, and at times it is, but there's been a lot of good and a lot of great that's happened to me as a result of it, and Medicine X obviously is just one of those things.
And this is your third time going, and we'll talk about your unique roles this year, but when you first went, or when you first heard about it, what was it about Medicine X that's kind of spoke to you as as an advocate, as an e-patient?
It didn't speak to me. That's the fun thing. Nick Dawson, friend of the show, Nick Dawson, he sent me a link to this saying, you should apply for this thing, and I clicked on the link and it said Stanford at the top, and that does not speak to me. I don't view myself as Stanford worthy. The application was talking about advocates and engaging the community and being a community leader and all these great nouns, and I didn't identify with any of them, but I applied anyway. And I think part of it, I know up front that everybody's super critical of themselves, right? I mean, it's always easy to find the flaws, and I didn't necessarily see my role in the diabetes community being as prominent as I guess the people reviewing my application did. But the opportunity to kind of advance the diabetes conversation the first time through at Medicine X, it was pretty exciting. I didn't know what I was getting into, and that was the big to me, realizing that all the conversations that I have on Twitter and on Facebook and on my blog about my diabetes and about general health conversations, they're happening in all these other disease communities too. And it never occurred to me prior to Medicine X that those conversations were happening. So that was the big thing that kind of opened my eyes to it, and that kind of reshaped my perspective and my, I guess, goals as a patient advocate. And that kind of helped. Then that helped move things along, and I kind of stayed somewhat public and vocal about different issues and things like that coming into the second year of Medicine X. So applying for it the second time around was a lot easier for me because I felt more confident in my role and my accomplishments thus far as a patient advocate.
So it sounds like you. I mean, it sounds like you did have an open mind, but you're a little bit pessimistic, kind of going the first time, just going to hang out, maybe meet people, or maybe meet people in person that you've known on Twitter for a number of years. And it's really kind of hard to explain kind of what happens in person as opposed to interactions online. But it seems like, and it happens to everybody, that some kind of magic happened. The MedX magic happened to Chris at this first interaction. Did you when that was happening, did you feel it happening at the time, or did you just, when you left, you just had to process the whole experience and just say, what the heck happened here?
It didn't. I think I knew at the time that it was a big deal. It didn't occur to me after the fact until, and this is kind of self-serving, until I started inviting these people that I met at Medicine X on my podcast to have more in-depth one-on-one conversations with them. And that's when I kind of realized, that's when I realized that that all these health conversations, these people that I'm talking to, they're pretty important. They know what they're talking about. They have a lot to say. They have a lot of meaningful things to say. And that kind of, I'm sorry, I keep saying kind of, and I realize that it's a weird verbal tick. But that,
don't worry, I'll just edit it out later.
Right, even though it says live on the.
That's right.
Right here. But I think in having those one-on-one conversations, I was able to better kind of quantify and qualify what all these people mean to the overall health conversation kind of spectrum, to the healthcare social media conversation, #HicksEm. I don't think at the time I really knew what I was getting myself into. Even during the conference, immediately after, I didn't really know. But once I started to really think about it and process it, and like I said, have those follow-up conversations, that's when it really hit me that there's a lot happening out there, and there are a lot of interesting people to hold these conversations with.
Now, this year is going to be much more unique than your past 2 years because you've kind of taken more of an inside role or more of a leadership role. Can you describe a little bit to the audience kind of what you've been asked to do and what you're excited about doing?
So I am one of the ePatient advisors, and we've helped. There's a whole staff of volunteers that are more on the event planning side, but when it comes to engaging the ePatient community, especially the ePatient delegates right now, scholars, once the conference is finished, we were reviewing the applications, we were reviewing some of the presentation proposals that were more relevant to us, and we helped to select all the ePatient delegates that will be arriving in a couple of weeks to kind of do their thing. So that whole process was exciting, it was exhausting, there were a lot of applications, but it was really fun to read all these different stories. Even though we're going through the same question over and over, there are so many different answers because everybody's life experiences are so unique, and that was a real fun time for me, just to kind of, I did it again, just to understand how big of a deal it is to attend Medicine X, how big of a deal it is to advocate for your own patient community. And I think that through just that application process, it helped kind of gain a new respect for all the online efforts that we are all going through and trying to raise awareness or fundraising or whatever it is that we're trying to do online. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things out there, and going through the applications itself was a really fun thing for me. After the application process and the delegates were selected, I've been given a batch of ePatient delegates to kind of, I say mentor, but I'm their point of contact. So in case there are any more logistical questions, I'm the person to go to for that. I've also been taking on some of the social media role, so a lot of the tweets you've been seeing off of Stanford Med X, if you want to follow them on Twitter. That's been me of late, and we've been kind of passing some of these duties around. There's been an all hands on deck situation for the past 2 weeks. It's definitely going to be like that moving forward. We've got certain people that are focusing more on the Ignite talks. Some people are focusing on the orientations and more interactions, making sure that everybody's going to be feeling welcome and things like that. And I'm going to be right now more on the social media front. And then once the conference happens, it's kind of a whirlwind of madness and excitement, but I think primarily I will be the point of contact for the patients, especially the ones that are new to Medicine X. I've got a couple that in my group that are returning, but for the ones that are new, if there are ever any questions or any doubts or anything like that, I'm going to be the point of contact there to make sure that they get what they need to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible and they have the best experience that they can at the conference.
That's something different that happened, I guess, during this cycle, is these kind of Google Hangouts or YouTube type programming from Medicine X, which I thought was very cool, to get people from a lot of different walks of life, kind of like a MedX type of presentation. Were you part of the planning process of that, or? or getting people lined up for all those spots there. I mean, it was looks like a lot of planning that went into, and there was even on-site talks given there at Stanford. It seemed like a whole huge operation that happened.
So there was a two-part effort. The Tuesday show, I believe, was the MedX Live proper. That was just a pure Google Hangout, and that was starting. So I moved here in January, and that was happening before I moved out here. That was actually started pretty quick after last year's conference, and that was basically started out as a Google Doc saying, here are the topics that we're thinking about. Who could we bring on? Who would be interesting to talk about these types of things? And that slowly expanded into almost a full year of content. And then the Thursday programming there were two different classes that were taught at Stanford by Dr. Larry Chu and one of his other peers. First one was Engage and Empower Me, and that was more about patient engagement, patient empowerment, telling their stories, how to interact with the patient community. Each one of those classes featured an ePatient speaker for 5 minutes, and they were up there telling their story, and then there was a broader topic, and then there was a Q&A portion after the fact. And then the second class was Design for Health. And they were talking about different aspects of the overall design process. So some of it was designing for empathy, designing for the patient experience in the hospital. It kind of helps these students think about healthcare and think about just the different aspects and different angles of healthcare from a variety of perspectives. I mean, and Dennis Boyle came in at the very end, kind of doing a little mini IDEO session with all the students. And I was there for part of the first class, and then for all of the second class, I was on site tweeting and interacting with all of the participants online. And that was it's a pretty fascinating process to see all of the equipment that's required just to get a live stream going. And obviously it's not going to be simple, but it's much more complicated than I ever anticipated. And then I was actually one of the ePatients to give one of those 5-minute big night talks, if you were, at the beginning of the class. So technically I did speak to Stanford Medicine students, which was an exciting prospect. It was terrifying, but I mumbled through my 5 minutes of diabetes advocacy.
Oh, it was good. Come on, don't sell yourself short there.
I felt good about it. I knew what I wanted to say, and I made sure to read the last bullet point about we need to work together on this. But at the time, public speaking is a really terrible thing for me, and even if, on the podcast, I can edit, and I'm not really looking at anybody. There's no audience. When I did the panel last year, Medicine X, I moderated the opening panel last year, and I was a ball of nerves up until the red light came on. Once the red light came on, I was okay, but right before that, you're the opening panel at this conference. It's a really big deal, and you're supposed to set the stage and set the tone and make sure that everybody's going to have an exciting time, and they're going to base that off of you. So it's easy to get nervous with something like that. But I'm moderating.
Yeah, just don't screw up is probably what they told you. So.
Yeah, pretty much. But then I'm moderating the opening panel this year, and I feel a lot better about it. So for the people out there that want to, I guess, see how well I can transition from topic to topic, because I pride myself on my segues. You can tune in. So.
No, I remember that, following that on Twitter and watching it on the live stream, and you were like, I'm freaking out, what's going on here? And then everybody's encourage you both online and obviously in person, but I wasn't there, but it was nice to see the live stream. Talk a little bit about this global health live stream type of thing that's I've been seeing all over Twitter in the past week.
So the Global Access Program basically means that you can watch Medicine X from the comfort of your home in your pajamas for free. We require that you sign up just so that you're notified of things that are happening. So you have to put in your email address. If you want to donate, you have the option of doing that. But first and foremost, it's a free web stream of the entire conference, of the main hall sessions. And it's a pretty... I'm on the ePatient advisory board. I'm working for this conference. I'm a part of building this thing up. So obviously I believe in it. But I think it's really, really cool because there are a lot of conferences that I've seen and that I've interacted with that I care about, that this type of access is not available, or it's only available after the fact. And it's great if you can go on YouTube and watch these videos after the fact, but you don't feel like you're part of the conversation. And because the live stream is going to be available for free to anybody who wants to sign up for it, you can hop on Twitter and talk with the people that are in the room, that are potentially on the panel, so that they could come off the stage, look at their computer or whatever, see the tweets, and respond to that. These conversations can be bigger than just what's happening in the main room. And because of the Global Access Program, that access is available worldwide. All you need is an internet connection. So like I said, if you want to take Friday off, which I would recommend, you sit around in your pajamas, maybe order some pizza if you want to, or just have a lot of bottled water around. Get comfy on the couch, put something on the iPad if you want, get the laptop in one screen. If you have a multi-screen setup, You can put the converts on your Apple TV or something like that. There are people that want to get really creative, and I'd be encouraged to see what kind of creativity actually comes out of this. But there are a lot of options available. But the crux of it is that the entire conversation is available to you for free, so that it isn't just for the people that actually flew out to California to do it.
Yeah, people should tweet how they're watching it. That'd be kind of cool too.
I would love to see a multi-screen setup. If I could see MedX on a big screen and in like a regular and like an iPad or something, just following the hashtag itself, and then on your computer you're blogging about it, and I don't know. I'm not sure how crazy we can get about this, but I know that overall, we have the technology to do something that insane.
We have the technology out there, people. There's the challenge.
Bigger, stronger, faster, that kind of stuff.
There you go, exactly. And I was so mad the last couple of years because I had to work that weekend. But just like you said, Chris, I mean, the ability and the availability of the live stream was huge. And I mean, there are live streams and there are live streams. I mean, this is high quality stuff. And I was able to kind of peek into it when I wasn't working to kind of catch the talks that I really wanted to catch over the past couple of years. I'm very excited to be in there in person this year, and I don't say this to toot my own horn, but I'm saying this to challenge all of my friends out there that I donated to the Global Access Program because I believe in it, and you should just go to the site and not only register for the live stream, but you should also donate as well, because it goes a long way, and it really impacted me because it really impacted my kind of opinion about conferences, and talking a little bit to people on the inside of different things. I mean, putting on a live stream is not a cheap type of thing, and when I ask people about it, you're like, oh yeah, just the bandwidth and the lighting and this and that. So if people want to see live stream that is done the right way, you should sign up for what is this called? The Global Access Program for Stanford Medicine X. Yeah,
I would add that as you mentioned, I thank you for that, and it isn't just like a single camera setup. Last year there was a camera on a crane, and it would kind of swoop in and be right in your face, and it was all kinds of crazy. So I mean,
yeah, I want to go to that crane camera.
Well, so I mean, I'm not sure, but if I have to put in a good word, there might need to be security around it just to keep you away from the crane. I don't know.
There you go. See, there's your next controversy there. So to keep Mike away from the boom camera. So.
MedX exclusive. Doctor attacks camera crane.
Exactly, and gets tased and pulled out of Medicine X film at 11.
Oh wow.
Oh man. So yeah, it seems like this Medicine X whole experience has really kind of been a part of your not only social media life but your life in the past 3 years. I mean, and that's how I got to be familiar with you. That's how I got to listen to your podcasts. Is through this whole Medicine X experience. And people always, and they tell me, and I know they tell you too, Chris, is that what is this? With social media and Twitter and Facebook, it really doesn't matter in the big picture, and it doesn't really have meaningful impact on people. It doesn't have impact on outcomes, all that type of stuff. People just need to tune into this Medicine X, not only live stream but on the internet. I mean, the tweets and the social media footprint and the impact from a social media standpoint. I mean, I believe isn't this still the hugest kind of footprint for any kind of conference out there?
To my knowledge, yes. I think to your first point, if people want to say that social media doesn't have an impact, again, I met my fiance through social media, and she's the reason I'm on a continuous glucose monitor. She's kind of the reason I'm going to be getting an insulin pump. So if you want to talk about health outcomes, I got you there too, skeptics. As far as, I forgot what the other question was. I was so focused on that.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. Oh yeah, let's jump topics here to the whole insulin pump thing. So how long have you been a type 1 diabetic, and how long have you been kind of thinking about this whole insulin pump deal?
So 2002, I was diagnosed fall 2002. My cat is begging for attention right now.
That's cool. We can give her some camera time. That's awesome.
Well, I might have to go get her actually, depending on how loud.
That's cool. I can stretch. While you go.
I think we'll be okay. But so that was fall 2002. I did syringes for a little bit, then insulin pens for most of my diabetes life, and I suppose over the past 6 months I've been seriously considering an insulin pump. And then at this past year's scientific sessions in June, I worked for the American Diabetes Association, and I was there as staff, so I got to walk around the exhibit floor, and I talked with a couple of different pump companies about their products, obviously. and I decided to, and I spoke with my insurance company to see what they would cover, and I'm going to be getting a T-Slim in about a month, actually. So for those of you out there, I guess that are a little more general news savvy, the Miss Teen Idaho or Miss Idaho, whoever that was, I think.
Oh yeah, I saw the pictures of that.
Yeah, so she was wearing a T-Slim pump, for those of you that want to get that specific about it. But it's the fine folks at Tandem Diabetes. I'm looking forward to starting this adventure because, like I said, I've only been on insulin pens. I only know dosing insulin in whole number amounts. I only know, pen needles left and right, and using my proper disposal boxes and things like that for my Sharps disposal containers for insulin pens only, for insulin pen needles only. So it's going to be an entirely new experience. I've been wearing a CGM for a very long time, so I know about wearing my diabetes, but I also don't know about wearing my diabetes because an insulin pump is an entirely different effort.
And define CGM for those who.
Sorry. For my continuous glucose monitor. Hang on, I got it in my pocket. We're going to put this thing on. We're going to show your audience. This is what I've been doing. Wait, camera. All right, so down. All right. So generally speaking, diabetes is managed. You know your blood glucose number by testing your blood sugar with the finger prick and everything like that. But that you can't do that all the time because it'd just be time consuming and be a waste of resources. So the CGM reads your interstitial fluid every 5 minutes to kind of supplement the finger sticks. The finger sticks are the ultimate be-all, end-all, FDA approved dose your insulin off of this number. But the finger stick also feeds into the CGM, and that's what's calibrated. The continuous glucose monitor is calibrated based off of that. So instead of doing single dots before breakfast, after breakfast, before lunch, after lunch, I now have a full line of data telling me what's going on with my blood sugar. So even if my blood sugar checks come out as 100 all the time, the CGM will tell me that, hey, you were at 250 2 hours ago, and now you're back down, so you might need to watch out for something like that. So I see trend lines. I've got a whole 24-hour perspective on my diabetes, and it's kind of revolutionized how I view my own diabetes management. I know I'm not alone in that.
Let's dip into that a little bit. Kind of describe how your management has changed, one, with the CGM, and then what you anticipate or what you hope will happen by adding the insulin pump to your treatment regimen.
So we'll have to get real for a moment. People die from diabetes. Kids die overnight from diabetes from a low blood sugar, and that's kind of the unfortunate reality of what happens with this disease. But if you're wearing a CGM and it's accurate enough, and for the most part the Dexcom G4 is, it will alert a low blood sugar. It will alert for a high blood sugar, and then you can obviously test to verify, and you can act after that. But the CGM it's been a lifesaver at times. I've had some pretty gnarly lows, like numbers that are pretty close to my age, and I'm not that old in the grand scheme of things. And I've had some pretty gross high numbers that I wouldn't be aware of without the CGM alerting to that kind of stuff. So being more aware of the less awesome moments helps keep me in range for longer. It helps my A1C for all you doctors out there. I'm sure you know about that number. That keeps my A1C in check. And that overall just provides a more comfortable life. I mean, and yes, whenever the thing is alarming in the middle of the night, it is annoying, but it is also alerting me to a 45 blood sugar that I need to get up and get some juice, or my fiance will get up and get me some juice if it wakes her up too. So this type of thing, it is, whenever I need it most, it is most essential. And whenever I don't need it, it's a nice safety net to have to keep an eye on things whenever, life might be going at 1,000 miles an hour, but I still need to keep an eye on my diabetes, but I'm not going to stop every 10 minutes to break out my meter and poke my finger for a drop of blood. So I've got the CGM on standby, and it's just monitoring everything for me. And it's been, within the first 6 months, my A1C dropped a full point. And that was, and again, and I know that, for your primary audience, for your doctors, that's got to be a pretty big thing. And I know that, as far as the FDA is concerned, they're pretty solid on the CGM stuff, and Dexcom and the people at Medtronic, they're working to improve the technology, improve the accuracy, improve the lifespan of these things, improve coverage so that more people can get them. And it's a really big deal just all around as a result of that stuff.
My guest on the line is Christopher Snider, ePatient advisor to the Stanford Medicine X meeting this year, and also hosted the Just Talking podcast. And we will get to the podcast a little bit, but my next question for you, Chris, is what's it like to be engaged?
I don't know. We've been living together for a while, so now we're just living together in California. We have to plan a wedding. We're planning a wedding in Huntsville, where she's from. So that's exciting because I'm in San Francisco. We're sending a lot of emails and waiting for people to respond, where I'm just hitting refresh on my keyboard, hoping that my photographer person will respond with our quote. and that the person who's going to be making our cupcakes will be making our cupcakes. So it's, I mean, like right now, wedding planning isn't that bad, but we'll see when it gets a little bit closer. Once I have to actually get fitted for my tuxedo, I might get a little more stressed. But I mean, like I don't have to worry about like a wedding dress. I don't want to. I'm not going to see the thing until the day of the wedding.
Exactly.
It's. I mean, I have a lot of. I understand that I have it easy, but I also understand that while it's our day, it's also not my day. If you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
But I mean, so far so good. We have our 2 cats, we have our fish, we have our San Francisco weather. Life is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So is there a special area or something for your CGM and your insulin pump? Or I mean, I know everybody with those with insulin pumps, I have all these backup and contingencies and all that type of stuff. But I would imagine probably if either you've started thinking about that, or that's in your daily thinking every day that is just not even an issue.
So the CGM is on my arm, so that isn't really going to get in the way of anything. That's just under my shirt. I don't know how the insulin pump is going to play into things because I haven't started on it yet. I would imagine that it's not going to be a big deal for me. I know that for women that are wearing an insulin pump that are getting married, getting that thing to mesh well with the dress or to mesh to the point where you don't even know that it's there is always not necessarily a concern, but it's a priority when it comes to the fitting and things like that. I haven't spoken with my fiance Dale about that yet. I would imagine that once she actually settles on the dress and does the fitting and all that other stuff, that accommodating the pump is going to be a part of it. And I will support her however I can. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's her diabetes as well, and I'm not going to try to dictate how it should be seen. If she wants to have the pump on the outside of the dress, more power to her. If she wants to have it hidden, I'm going to support her in that too.
All right, man. Good job. So just talking podcasts. So to let my audience know, were you doing something before? Was this like a new idea? I mean, I know you're familiar with podcasts. How did your podcast get started?
So the proper backstory is with the diabetes blog that I started, I didn't just write about my diabetes all the time. I wrote about video games, which was one of my other passions, every Friday, because I knew I wanted to kind of distance myself from diabetes and just kind of wrap my head around the fact that it isn't just about diabetes 24/7, even if it is about diabetes 24/7. And writing about video games, I was also cross-posting that content to a community site that I was a fan of. And after a few months of that, one of the editors there said, hey, we like your stuff, we want to put it on the front page. So all of my posts were now going on the front page of this website rather than just in the regular community blog section. After a month of that, they offered me a podcasting co-host job. And after 2 months of that, 2 or 3 months of that, I assumed full hosting roles within a podcast. So that was show notes, hosting the audio, producing the audio, sharing everything, and just kind of the whole soup to nuts process. And that went well. Podcasting is great. Talking about video games is always fun. But I knew, at least within the kind of network and within the kind of relationships of my co-hosts, that there was more to their lives than just video games. And the only way to have those types of conversations with them was if I did my own thing. So I started my own podcast, and the rest is history, I guess. I've been posting every Tuesday since October or something.
Wow, I can't even imagine that.
I can't either. When I actually look it up, it's kind of scary to think that I've been posting content every Tuesday. But
I did that for about two years, and then I was done. Like I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, so I'm going to look at my handy-dandy podcasting owl. This is my notes notebook. So I am going to be recording episode 252 tonight on Tuesday and posting that later tonight as well. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that if you want to build a relationship with your audience to the point where they're going to spend potentially an hour of their time with you, you have to be consistent to the point that you post content every week whenever you say you're going to. And if you're not posting content, you post a piece of audio filler saying why there's no audio there. That is one of my core tenets as a podcaster, that if you want to build that relationship, you have to be transparent with everybody that's going to be spending their bandwidth and their commute or whatever with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I did that for a couple years straight, and life gets in the way, and everything kind of fell apart, and it was hard to put back together. But yeah, I definitely learned that lesson. I did want to touch on a recent episode. You had a guest from the Middle East or Israel, or I saw that on your Facebook page or on your Twitter. What was that about?
Yishai Knoble, he's the founder and CEO of an app called Help Around. Yes, I'm actually looking at it right now. So he's in Israel, and I would imagine the moment that you're talking about is whenever he had to leave in the middle of our recording to go to his bomb shelter.
Kind of take us through that as you're going through this recording.
So this isn't, obviously in saying this isn't a political statement, it's still a political statement, but I don't want to talk about the actual situation there. What's happening is is bad on all fronts. I mean,
Correct.
people dying sucks. Just leave it at that.
Correct.
But Duman's over there. We're talking on Skype, and I knew that it was late for him. It was like 10 p.m. or something like that. And he just, as he was giving me an answer, I actually heard his phone buzz, and he kind of abruptly finished his response to me and said, "Hey, I just got a message. I have to go to the bomb shelter right now." And I said, "Okay." And then about 10 minutes later, he came back saying, "Sorry about that." I was like, "I don't want to apologize for me." And then we just carried on the rest of the conversation, and I edited the podcast like normal. And at the very end of the show, after everything had done, I had told him, it's like, "Hey, I'm going to edit out the bit in the middle where you said you had to leave, and that's fine." And he ultimately said that he had no problem with, as long as it was tasteful, and I explained to him how I was going to edit it into what the final product is, that I was going to leave the bit where he said he had to go to his bomb shelter in the final piece of the audio. So if you listen to the podcast, you hear him give his answer, say I have to go to the bomb shelter, and then what I do in my podcast, I have audio interludes between kind of major topic changes. So him saying he has to go to the bomb shelter, transitioned immediately to the audio, and then we just picked up right after that. And I thought about, not including it in there. Like while he was gone, I was just thinking, what do I do about this? And I decided, and he ultimately gave permission to include that bit in there. I had no problem taking it out, but that's just one of those moments that you don't really plan for. I understand that there's real life happening outside of just my silly little podcast, but this is the first time it's ever really kind of happened during the audio, during the actual recording, where I've had to kind of face it and kind of acknowledge it firsthand.
How about even, excuse me, even reaching out and inviting him on the show in the first place? Did you think in the back of your mind that you would have to do all these disclaimers and saying this is not any kind of political statement, we're talking about health, we're talking about the core content of this show? I just have a guest that is in a part of the world that is dangerous. Did that go through your mind even before sending out the invite?
Not at all. I didn't know where he was going to be. I was contacted by his top PR person, and I think he was doing broad diabetes outreach at the time. And it's like, okay, yeah, this sounds like an interesting idea. I was actually skeptical of the app, and that's why I had pursued the podcast invite, because I wanted to talk with him about my skepticism, just in general, about what that app could accomplish and why somebody would want to use it. And then as we were scheduling the times, that's when I learned that he was in Israel, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't, doesn't really care. As long as you have internet access, you can come on my podcast. And other than saying at the very beginning, from Israel, here's my guest, that was the only thing I was going to mention about it. And I always say from wherever they're from. I always include locations as kind of an identifier and also as an icebreaker in my podcast. So it never occurred to me that anything was ever going to really come from it. I've had one other person from Israel on my podcast before. This was over a year and a half ago, Jessica Apple. So it's, I'm not. It's not unnatural to have somebody from overseas or whatever on my podcast, but it never occurred to me that something like this could actually happen, like I said, while the recording was happening. But that's kind of the realities of the world.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I remember when I was on Skype, and I had people on from India and from Europe, and it just makes the world so small, but the conversation is the same, and the internet has kind of made the discussion so much closer, and to get people from different points of view, different regions of the world, different accents. It just stands up to the richness of the conversation that we're having on social media. And it was cool listening to that specific show that you had.
Yeah, and he was at the Children with Diabetes Friends for Life conference a couple of weeks ago, and that was in Orlando, Florida. So he's a well-traveled man. He understands the diabetes community, and we were talking about all aspects of overall diabetes care. Excuse me. Diet Coke, sorry.
No.
So it's not a problem. It's not a matter of just trying to get people to understand me. He clearly I think because he was building that app, he had an idea of his target audience and what their needs were. So I think that actually kind of again, that added a different sense of perspective to what he was trying to accomplish, because it wasn't just a person in this other world, third-person, omnipresent view saying, here, people with diabetes, understand this, use it, this is my product, business model, whatever. He works with people with diabetes. They're on his staff. He's been to these conferences. He's talked with these people firsthand. He's had these conversations to understand what their needs are and what their needs aren't. So I think obviously that has to be important if you want to have a more successful business, regardless of what the ultimate end goal is. But it definitely helped in my perspective, in my understanding of what he was trying to accomplish, knowing that he wasn't just thinking about putting out this app and making money off of it. He was trying to help people with diabetes, and that it made for from my perspective, it made for a very interesting conversation.
So my guest on the line, as you can see, is Christopher Snider, ePatient. advisor to Stanford Medicine X 2014, also host of the Just Talking podcast, justtalkingpodcast.com.
Thank you.
So in our remaining moments here, I know it's hard for a podcaster to answer questions, so you can ask me questions.
I'm gonna segue away from my answers and ask them back to you.
Exactly. So I see this boomeranging back to me, but so Chris, so is Twitter and Facebook still the thing on social media in your opinion? I mean, have people moved on to Snapchat and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know what a Snapchat is. I understand that it exists, but I think I've stopped at Tumblr because in part I have 10 Tumblr blogs. Some of them are more successful, depending on how you want to measure success, than others. I don't know. I mean, social media, it's what you make of it, right? I mean, if you want to engage with people on Twitter, then go at it. If you want to only stay on Facebook, then go at it. If you don't want to use Facebook, then don't. I'm not one to preach on the successes or on the perks of one. Well, actually, I want to preach on the perks, but I'm not one to judge on where you choose to engage on social media. If that's what you want to do it. Be happy. Don't be a jerk about it. I think that's kind of for life, not necessarily just the internet. But I mean, I'm somewhat active on a number of social media platforms. I have accounts that are every now and then updated on a number of others, but Facebook and Twitter are my primary, and then I moderate my Diabetes Secret on Tumblr, and I don't know. I have my blog is hosted on WordPress, so those are probably my core four. If you want to, sorry for the rhyme.
Oh no, that's awesome. So if there is a patient out there, we're all patients, but if there's a patient out there who feels that he or she has a story to tell, and they want to be an advocate. They want to be an advocate for themselves. They want to be an advocate for the people with their disease state. They want to be an advocate for patients in general, and they want to have a voice on social media. What would your advice be to them just to even get started?
I think the first question, that isn't really a question, but you have to understand what it is you want to say and how. All of the different platforms out there, be it blogs, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever, they all have their benefits as far as most effective ways of communicating. So if you want to communicate in more long form, in proper sentences, paragraphs potentially, I would suggest starting a blog. Go to Blogger, go to WordPress, things like that. If you want to have a more wide variety of media to communicate with and potentially use other people's comments and posts and things like that to build off your own thoughts, Tumblr is a great place for something like that. Twitter is probably my first go-to. There's a diabetes chat every Wednesday, Diabetes Social Media Advocacy, #DSMA. Every Wednesday night that happens. That is the fastest hour of your diabetes life, but it's also a great way to find new people with diabetes that are interacting online. And from there, you can build out your network, find other people that are dealing with similar situations. If you're about to get married, you can probably find somebody else who's about to get married and have fun chats with them about how to figure out your wedding dress or what kind of cupcakes to have at your wedding. If you're pregnant or planning a pregnancy, it's a great way to find other people that have had kids with diabetes, or they've had diabetes and they've had kids, or people that are currently pregnant. There's always somebody popping up these days that is, they're talking about going to their endo and going to all their different doctors, making sure that everything is safe, diabetes or diabetically speaking, so that whenever they are pregnant, then they can have a happy and healthy baby. So if that's the kind of person you're looking for, people you're looking for, again, I would start with Twitter, and then you can find all these other people. They're usually going to be active on more than one platform, but Twitter is usually my go-to for, hey, I'm new to the diabetes world, what's up? And you will probably immediately get 10 to 15 responses saying, hi, what's up? And you'll get a bunch of new followers, and you add Twitter lists and things like that. It's a pretty fun experience for, like I said, for a disease that can be a bummer most of the time.
And people shouldn't be scared, because they will get overwhelmed and say, DSMA, what's up? And it is just showing some love. And, and I know I've done that sometimes, and, just say, hey, what's up? And it's hard to describe to people who don't really understand, but any kind of community is real similar, whether it's in person, whether it's a virtual type community. It's a place where you don't feel like you're by yourself. You feel connected to other people, whether you're across the street or across the world. And people get scared of it, and there's a lot of kind of naysayers out there that really scare people. But it takes people like us to kind of really push the positive and say, this is how social media, this is how digital technology, this is how digital communication has really impacted and changed my life. I know that myself, I've learned a lot about a lot of different disease states, especially diabetes. Especially type 1 diabetes, because for just to let my audience know, I mean, the diabetes community is huge. It's out there. It's powerful. There's a lot of great people even to ask any kind of questions. So if people are looking for just an initial community just to kind of ask questions and kind of see, that's what I would recommend. But it's cool, this whole experience. I mean, I've been through this for a number of years now, and both being in the spotlight and both being outside and kind of looking in. It's been fun trying to see all this evolve and see, and I'm really looking forward to Medicine X. This will be my first in-person experience to meet you in person. We've had a number of digital interactions, but it's going to be fun to not only meet people that I've kind of met online before, and to catch up with people that we haven't seen for a long time. I haven't seen Dana Lewis in person for a long time, so it will be great to catch up with those.
You're gonna have to get in line to meet her, though. There's gonna be 1,000 people that want to shake her hand or give her a hug. She's a very rightfully so, a very popular person.
Oh yeah, no, I'll just wave. That's how close I'll get. I mean, I'll probably get closer to the jib camera than I will to Dana Lewis because all the popularity that is out there.
If you want to climb the crane and be like, Dana, hi, Dana, hi.
Remember me? Hey, what's up?
The one thing I want to add to what you just said is that the biggest common denominator in all of these social media stories, specifically with the diabetes community, but I'm sure there are parallels within the other disease communities, but I'm not going to speak for them. But the biggest common denominator is that people will eventually come out of their shell, engage on whatever network they choose, and say, I thought I was alone, now I know I'm not, and I feel so much better for it. I've seen that happen 1,000 times on the Tumblr blog that I moderate, My Diabetes Secret. It happens every week on Twitter during those diabetes chats. Whenever somebody new is diagnosed on Facebook, somebody who I know will say, hey, everybody, meet this person who was just diagnosed this weekend with diabetes. And then there will be instantly comments of support. And not necessarily saying, like, hey, this is what you need to do, this is how you manage your blood sugar. It's just, hey, what's up? If you want to chat, I'm here. Or hi. It doesn't even have to be anything about diabetes. It's just hi. But there's a community of people that are there to support and to help people get through the tough times whenever they happen, because they will happen. But it's a lot of fun to see somebody new, express that they're new, say, hey, I'm here for the first time, how's it going? And just to see that wave of support, the wave of uplifting, the wave of community doing what communities do best. It's a really exciting thing.
Yeah, I am just so excited to go. I have some other emails out to try to have some Google Plus interviews for people who are going to the conference to try to interact with them and talk with them leading up to the conference. But as a final plug there, Chris Snider. So why should people who cannot attend the meeting, why should they register for the free Global Access Program for Stanford Medicine X?
Because you cannot name another medical conference that features patients on every panel, that puts the patients literally at the front of the room as far as seating is concerned, that will pay to have patients come to the conference and include patients in the conversation throughout the 3-day adventure. You cannot name another conference that does it. You can name another conference that has a panel with a token patient. You can name another conference with, with that same guest speaker year after year because that's the one person they know is a safe bet. But you cannot name another conference that is anything like Medicine X, and you want to be a part of that.
Cool. So, Chris Snider, thanks so much for the time there, buddy. Before I let you go, where can people find you and find Medicine X and everything that you want them to learn about you?
I am _Spartacus. I actually put it in the little Google thing, my lower third. I thought that might be a good way to kind of promote my brand. I'm going to throw up a little bit when I just said that.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm on Twitter. I tweet often, occasionally. I do a lot of retweets whenever I don't really feel like saying anything meaningful. But that's the primary point, and then there's a link to my About Me page if you want to find my blog, tobesugarfree.com, my podcast, justtalkingpodcast.com. As mentioned, mydiabetessecret.tumblr.com if you want to see what people with diabetes are really going through. What else? medicinex.stanford.edu is the place to go for that conference that I just mentioned that you cannot find another equal to. Again, registering for the Global Access Program is free, and that's 3 straight days of streaming audio goodness. I believe that I think it's not the play-by-play, but like the in-house announcer for the Stanford football games. He's there to announce all the people that come up on stage, so if you want to hear like an actual proper media voice instead of me or Dr. Sevilla talk, then you got that there too. I said proper media voice. I mean,
you think he'd let me sneak up there and like, we'll vamp a little bit?
so
I'm not sure.
in between sessions, you could probably like do like a quick lap across the stage if you want to walk across and be like, oh, I need to go get to that person over there the fastest way because there are so many people, so many patients in the front that I need to walk across the stage. That could be your way to do it. If you want, just kind of give me the heads up. Give me the heads up, and I'll take the picture of you up there. And that way you can say you were on stage.
And then I will headbutt the jib camera as a security. I will headbutt the jib camera while waving at Dana Lewis as they are tasing me.
This is a really complex shot, but I think we can get it.
So people have to tune in because it'll be my first and last Medicine X because I will be banned for life.
Sign up for that Global Access program to see if Dr. Sevilla gets arrested. That's right, and it's free. I don't like that.
Thanks so much. I'm really looking forward to meeting you. We're going to be. I know you're going to be flying around doing all kind of behind the scenes stuff, but I'm really looking forward to sitting down with you and chatting a little bit and having a good time. So thanks a lot for the time there, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to seeing you out here.
And that's our show here tonight. So my name is Dr. Mike Sevilla, drmikesevilla.com, and at Dr. Mike Sevilla. And yes, I do have some invites out there for other people going to Medicine X. As of course, it's just matching up schedules, matching up. Work gets in the way of all this stuff. But hopefully, I'll be able to talk to some other people. And so yeah, I'm really enjoying these Google Hangouts, even with our good friend Dr. Jerry Tolbert doing some family medicine stuff as well. So yeah, I think I'm transitioning more to video more than audio. So but we'll see what happens. We'll see if I get banned, and we'll see if I get kicked off YouTube or Google Hangouts. So till next time, kids. We will see you again here at drmikesevilla.com. Check out all the good stuff. Good night, everybody.